All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed our little commercial there, and that was unique because that was the first video that we've shot on this new Panasonic AF100. Now, if you've been paying attention over our last videos, you may have noticed that we shot the majority of that stuff on the Canon 5D Mark II, which has become basically a staple in the video industry as a video DSLR with that real cinematic look. But now we've got cameras like this, and this gives us a lot of unique benefits. You know, one of the things that we have to deal with the 5D Mark II is recording audio separately onto separate recorders. Not a big deal, but it means a lot of work in post, syncing things up and getting them adjusted. Of course, with a camera like this, we've got our traditional XLR audio ports for audio straight in. But it's also about that look. You know, the 5D Mark II has that big sensor. It gives us that really cinematic look. Well, the Panasonic AF100 has a very large micro four thirds sensor as well. And the cool thing about this, although it's smaller than the 5D Mark II, it's very similar in size to our classic Super 35 film, which is what we would use in movies throughout history. So this gives us a very true cinematic look. One more cool thing I want to talk about with this sensor is it's only a 2 megapixel sensor, and, you know, compared to the 5D Mark II's huge 21 megapixel sensor. Now, at first thought, you might see, well, that's no good. I mean, I want more megapixels, but this is just for high-def video alone, not for stills, so all we need is that 2 megapixel sensor. That means we get much bigger pixels, much larger pixel pitch, and the camera doesn't have to do all this interpolation from a large sensor down to high def. This is native high def. It means really, really good quality, great low light performance. But don't take my word for it. We're going to take you through this camera and the 5D Mark II, kind of show you what the video looks like, what the differences are, and what kind of benefits a camera like this can give you. Come check it out. Okay, folks, now, of course, as we're going through our comparisons today, remember these cameras are very different. We're not really comparing apples to apples. We're really more comparing an apple to an orange that tastes like an apple when you bite into it. You know, they are trying to do similar things. In a lot of ways, the 5Ds now have a lot of gadgets to help them shoot more like a video camera. And a video camera like this has gadgets that help it shoot more like an SLR, like that big sensor, and the ability to interchange lenses. But one of the most important things when you're shooting video is NDs. You need to bring down some of the light, especially when you're shooting on a beautiful day like today with a lot of light. The fact is, when we shoot video, we want to shoot at slower shutter speeds. And the AF100 has a very, very handy ND system. We've got this flip dial here, and it can go from no ND filtration to a quarter ND to a 16th, and then to a 64th. Now that's great, it's convenient, and it's built right into the camera. And we take a 5D like this, we don't have any of that built-in ND. We still have to use the slow shutter speeds, but we need to have a way to hold back that extra light. So we use things like these ND faders. Now these are cool filters, and as you can see, as I turn it, it simply gets darker. It holds back the light. Great thing about fader NDs on SLRs is you've got complete variability. You can adjust it to any sort of ND, even fine tune it. But as you can see, sometimes you get some funny optical issues if you go too far. And it is something you have to screw in the front of the lens. It's not built in, so you can't use a hood or anything like that very easily. On the AF100, this beautiful dial is always there. It's handy, it's quick, the quality is consistent, no color cast changes, it's beautiful. When we compare these two cameras, we do have to mention the Canon 5D Mark II is still very unique because of that big full-frame chip, and that gives us very, very thin depth of field, a very unique perspective, and for that reason alone, filmmakers are still going to love it when they want that sort of beyond what normal cinema can give us. But the Panasonic AF100 does have a very large chip with that micro four thirds size in there, and that is, as we've talked about, very reminiscent of a classic 35mm film movie camera. And because of that, we can still do beautiful focus pulls, really isolate our depth of field, get our subjects out from the background, and get that cinema quality look. Now, of course, when it comes to perspectives as well, it's all about lenses. And the 5D Mark II was great as a movie camera because it allowed us to use SLR lenses for basically the first time ever when shooting movies. That means fisheyes, ultra-wides, long telephotos, stuff which is hard to get on a standard video camera. The Panasonic AF100 keeps that tradition going. We've got a great lens mount here. We can change lenses interchangeably. And this does fit the standard Panasonic G series lenses. Now, one of the cool things about that is it gives us something we cannot get easily on other SLRs. It gives us autofocus with those Panasonic lenses. And they've got a great selection of fast primes, macros, fisheyes, ultra-wides. So you've got a great system there. But with some simple adapters, we can also put on Nikon lenses, Canon lenses with the adapters, Pentax, Olympus. So the sky really becomes the limit on what kind of lenses you can use on here. And of course, you can manually focus those things beautifully on the camera and get great metering and iris control. So let's take a look at what the Panasonic AF100 can do here as we focus pull through the scene and see our sort of depth of field and then perspective. Now as you can see here, it's still a really nice separation, very, very beautiful cinematic look. Now let's pop on the Canon 5D Mark II. We'll see what that looks like, see if we can isolate that unique look that it gives. All right, now we got the Canon 5D Mark II mounted here as well. And just so you folks at home know what we're doing, we're shooting the Canon 24-70 2.8 here at 70 millimeters and at 2.8. And with the Panasonic shots, we're shooting that with a Nikon 17-35 at 35 millimeters at 2.8. Now with the 2x conversion factor on the Panasonic, that should give us a very, very similar frame and also let us compare the same aperture to see what the depth of field difference is. Now the 5D Mark II here, let's rack this focus. And as you folks can see here, I mean, look at that beautiful thin depth of field. It really is unique. It really does let you isolate the foreground almost completely, or vice versa with the background here. That being said, there's good and bad to both. This is a great, unique, artistic look, but if I was doing run and gun documentary work, it's really hard to hold my subjects with that thin depth of field. Plus the fact that, remember, on a camera like this, I cannot get autofocus while I'm shooting, so I got to focus pull exclusively if I'm doing run and gun. On the Panasonic AF100, if I use those Panasonic lenses, I can get nice autofocus. That can really help with documentary work and just make the camera a bit more versatile for many, many different kinds of projects. One of the biggest problems we face when we shoot our videos with a DSLR like this is rolling shutter. Because of the big chip size, it's fairly pronounced here. So what I'm going to do, just so you can see it, you look out for it, is I'm going to shake the camera on Jordan, and what you'll see is that his body's going to do this jello effect where the bottom moves before the top does. Doesn't look very realistic, especially when you're doing pans and transitions. Here we go. All right, now when we go to the AF100, because it's got a slightly smaller chip, even though it's still a CMOS chip, we just get a lot better processing on the Panasonic and we get a lot less rolling shutter. So check out this. Jordan's going to shake the camera back and forth and you'll see very, very little rolling shutter in comparison. Still look pretty normal, right? All right, folks, look, we got duckies here, and this gives us a great opportunity to test overcranking and undercranking in different frame rates. Now, the Canon 5D can only do 24 or 30 frames per second. You don't get an overcrank slow-mo option. Now, you could do slow-mo in post, but the quality isn't ideal. Now with the AF100, you get a lot of frame rates. You get a variable frame rate. You're looking at anywhere from 12 to 60 frames per second and any frame rate in between that you can imagine. And what that lets us do is really fast action shooting, as you can see here, with sort of sped up time, or we can do beautiful slow-mo effects here as well, as you can see here. Now what the slow-mo lets us do is get full resolution as well at 1080p on the AF100. I know that cameras like the 60D and the 70 from Canon also get a 60 frame per second frame rate, but then you're shooting at 720p, and again you get a bit of aliasing in post. So again, beautiful frame rates, speed it up, slow it down, it's unique. Now the other cool thing is the 180-degree shutter. What that means is that whatever frame rate I choose, the camera will automatically give me the ideal shutter speed to go with that frame rate. That's great, because on a 5D, if I change frame rates, I have to remember, oh yeah, I got to adjust my shutter speed to also match that. If you forget it, you're not going to get an ideal result. So really nice to use, really, really easy with these frame rates. Now media is another thing. The AF100 has dual SD card slots. SD cards are cheap, they're easy to find. Class 6 is all you need. The 5D Mark II is still using compact flash. And it's also nice with the ports here. We do get SDI output, so we can break that sort of ABC HD mark if we want more megabits per second, go to the SDI out. 5D, of course, doesn't have that. Also, the HDMI plug, well, you can have a video signal going out while these are still on, whereas on most SLRs, the screen's going to turn off if you go to an external monitor. So really, really nice features to make it easy to use. This has been great today. We've shot this whole video on the AF100 that you've seen here, and this camera's just been a joy to use. It gives us all that we've ever been wanting as videographers out in the field. We struggle with things like having audio recorded separately. That's gone. We've got it right back in here again. We get that SLR quality and SLR look. I mean, it's very cinematic on this camera, and look how well the sensors handled this harsh contrast today. It's done a beautiful job. We get back all the wonderful controls that we've taken for granted when we've gone back to an SLR. We've got all the lenses that we still want to use. Man, this camera handles artifacting so well. I think this is going to be the one that we're going to take now for the rest of our videos. So if you're looking for something that's out in the field, cinematic, and gets that great quality with just a slight trade-off in that depth of field that you can get on a full-frame chip, this is the way to go. We'll see you folks later.
Chris, the 5D Mark II.
No, we don't need any more.